Hi, friends, and welcome to another edition of Gene Valentino's GrassRoots TruthCast. Recently, I had the chance to be at the CPAC convention in Washington, D.C., the first quarter of 2024, and I had the privilege of meeting two gentlemen, both names Tom Douglas and Thomas Homan. We're going to get the chance to meet both of them. One name I'm certain you recognize right off the top, Tom Homan from Homeland Security under the Trump administration, and his associate have plenty to tell us about the state of affairs in this nation right now, and what it was, what it is now, and under a new Trump administration, where it's going right after this.
I'm excited to announce we're having a huge MyPillow spring sale, and here's a few examples. Buy one of our MyPillow 2.0s, you get another MyPillow 2.0 absolutely free. Made with cooling technology, the best pillow ever just got even better. And this just in, 9 brand new colors and styles of our Percale bed sheets. They're made with the finest long staple cotton, and now you can save 50% or more. That's as low as $24.98. And for the first time this year, I'm bringing you our My Slippers and Sandals for as low as $25 a pair. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get your MyPillow 2.0s. Buy one, get one free. Percale sheets as low as $24.98. My Slippers and Sandals as low as $25 a pair. And for a limited time, when you order $75 or more, your entire order ships absolutely free.
Hi, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Gene Valentino's GrassRoots TruthCast. With me today is Thomas Douglas and Thomas Homan from Homeland Security. I'm going to start with Tom Douglas. Tom, please introduce yourself and tell us your background. Tell folks how we met Tom Homan, and together we met all of you, each other at CPAC first quarter 2024.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Gene, for having us. Great to meet you at CPAC. Honored to be there. I've been in healthcare over 25 years in a variety of roles, from sales, marketing, leadership, business development. And I've been in digital health now for the last 5 years, and currently Vice President of Business Development for the Universal Health Group. So glad to be here today and excited to tell our story.
Well, it was an interesting story. I had the privilege of having you introduce me to our featured guest today, Tom Homan, former Assistant Director of Homeland Security, ICE. And Thomas, welcome aboard, and feel free to give us where you're going. I see you're inside the car.
Yeah, my schedule is uncontrollable. My schedule changes every so between working a lot of campaign issues for President Trump and doing a lot of keynote speeches across the country, especially for Lincoln Day dinner. So I'm very busy right now. So I'm actually in the middle of New York. I'm on my way to Albany to give a speech tonight, and I'm glad to be on your podcast. Tom, just for a little background, Tom Douglas reached out to me a few years ago, and he has been concerned about public health. His company concerned about public health and vaccinations and so forth. He reached out to me about the border, and look, people hear me say it all the time. The border patrol is doing the best job they can under this administration, but we got to admit that, look, the numbers speak for themselves. We got an historic illegal immigration crisis on the border, but it's just not about illegal immigration anymore. People need to understand, when 8 million people have been across this border under this administration, many of them are criminals. Not all of them, but many of them are. Many of them are sick. Many of them come from country-sponsored terror. So I say it all the time, and I'm pushing all year long. It's just not about illegal immigration more. It's about public health. It's about public safety. It's about national security. And so where I met Tom is all about the public health issues. We got millions of people enter this country from third world nations that simply don't have prior vaccinations, and COVID is just the latest disease that come across that border. I mean, my 34 years doing this job, I've seen many cases of TB, tuberculosis. I've seen mumps and chickenpox and measles. So this border crisis has turned into a public safety crisis for the United States, and that's where me and Tom hooked up, because he was looking for some consulting work, some guidance on how we can, address the border issue and protect public health here in the United States.
Well, I'll throw some questions out and throw the ball up in the air, and I'll welcome either of you to respond based on who you feel is most suited to answer it. But I must tell you, I saw the governor, I believe it was of Iowa, moments ago on the news announcing that because of Biden's ineptitude and his inaction, maybe illegal unto itself, in not responding to the border crisis, that the state of Iowa, under the direction of the governor, is taking it upon themselves to turn these migrants back to the border. And the Biden administration turns around and is suing the state of Iowa now to allege that that action is illegal. Any comment?
Well, look, Iowa's doing the right thing, just like the state of Texas is doing the right thing. They have a right to protect their states and their citizens. If the federal government is going to advocate their responsibility to secure the border, then I think it's up to the state. I think they have a constitutional right to do what they can to protect their states. So this administration, regardless of what the White House spokeslady wants to say every day, the fact remains that this administration created the most severe crisis we've ever seen on the border. We had the past administration, Trump administration, had the most secure border in my lifetime. I spent 34 years doing this job, and it's the most secure border based on the data. Just not my opinion. Anybody go look at cbp.gov, look at the data. And this administration came in within weeks that we went from the most secure border of my lifetime to historic, never seen before numbers. And the reason Iowa and other states are stepping up, because the federal government to this day, 3.5 years into this, they haven't done a single thing to slow the flow.
Yeah.
This administration can't say one thing they've done to slow the flow. The only thing they've done is send more resources to the border to process quicker and release quicker, because they really believe that there's no overcrowding and there's nothing to see here. Then they can keep saying the border secure. So I think the governor of Iowa is doing the right thing. I think the governor of Texas is doing the right thing. Let's remember, there's 22 other states that are backing Texas's play on this. They believe they have the right to enforce law if the federal government refuses to do so.
Tom, when President Trump gets reelected, I'm going to be presumptuous and not ask you for an answer, but I'm going to be presumptuous and say somewhere in the mix, you're in there. And I'd like to take it one step further, that if in fact you are, what's your action plan to remove these illegals? Sean Hannity reports near 30 million. Under the Biden administration, 3.5 years, maybe 12 million. How are you going to get these people out of here?
Well, to answer your question, Trump wants me back. I'm back in a heartbeat. I already made that commitment, so we can answer that question right away. And look, Washington Post they did a hit piece on me. I think it was 4 years ago, and the first sentence of that hit piece was what they considered a hit piece was the first sentence: Tom Homan deports me from is really good at it. Well, I took that and it's in a frame in my office sitting on a wall where that's a badge of honor. So look, I do not deport people. So what we're going to do is we'll do what we always do. It'll be a professional operation. It will be, of course, the public safety threats and national security threats. It will be first. They should be, because they're a threat to this country. But the difference between this administration and the Trump administration is no one's off the table. If you're in the country illegally, it's not okay. It's not okay to enter this country illegally, because it's a crime to enter this country illegally. It's not okay to ignore a federal court order to deport you and just ignore it. I mean, if you and I ignore a federal court order, we'd be sitting in prison. So it's not okay to be in this country illegally. So there's no one off the table. If you're in the country illegally, you better be looking over your shoulder. But yeah, there's a lot of people to remove. How do we do it? It's going to depend on what Congress does. Is Congress going to give us the additional agents we need? Are they going to give us additional detention beds we need? The transportation contracts we need? All this stuff comes into play, because people need to understand you just don't deport people the same day you arrest them. We have to detain them. We have to work with their host country to get travel documents. They got to be able to accept them. There's a whole process in place. We have to detain people for probably a couple of weeks before we actually put them on a plane and send them home. So there's a lot to it. But someone asked for how to remove 20 million people. You remove them one at a time. So we'll do the best we can. We'll have a lot more resources dedicated to it, but we'll do it professionally. It's not what the left's preaching now. Left saying, oh, they're going to build concentration camps. They're going to sweep neighborhoods. No, we're not. Every arrest ICE makes will be a planned arrest based on an operational plan. So can we remove 20 million people in a year? No, that's just a fact. But we're going to remove as many as we can, lawfully, humanely, because that's the right thing to do. The left says, these people have a right to claim asylum. They have a right to see a judge. Yes, they do. But due process doesn't mean anything if the final decision of the court isn't carried out. If we
That's
don't carry
correct.
out immigration orders, then what the hell are we doing? Then might as well just shut down the immigration court, take the border across the border, because there is no consequence, there is no law. So we're going to remove them as we can. I can guarantee this: we'll remove a record number, and we won't give up. This is something we have to do. The country requires it, the law requires it, and unless there's consequences, unless you feed those consequences, you're never going to fix the border. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to fix the border. There are going to be consequences. If you're in this country illegally, you're going to go home.
Yeah, not the. I remember those crazy accusations about concentration camps. If the truth be known, it's the Republican Party and the Trump administration that showed care and compassion and civility on how to handle many of these illegal migrants. And
You
you
know,
would know that.
let me foot stomp what you just said, because it's important what you just said. People say the Trump administration was inhumane, they were cruel, including myself. I've been called every name in the book. But if you look at the numbers, the real data, Doctors Without Borders did a study saying 31% of women that make that journey through the cartels get sexually assaulted. 31% of women admitted to being sexually assaulted by the cartels. So if 31% admitted it, how many actually got sexually assaulted? So in the Trump administration, we had illegal immigration down 83 to 90%, depending on what time frame you looked at. It was at a 45-year low. So my question is to those people that want to say how inhumane we were, but I'd ask them this question. When illegal immigration was down 90%, when 90% less people were coming, how many women didn't get sexually assaulted? How many children didn't drown in the river? How many Americans didn't die from fentanyl overdoses because the border was secure and we were seizing fentanyl? How many known suspected terrorists didn't make it in the country? How many migrants didn't die? Under Biden, we got 1,700 illegal aliens that died crossing the border, his historic record. We got 148,000 Americans dying from fentanyl, an historic record. So if you look at the records of Trump and the Biden administration, the Trump administration saved thousands of lives by the sheer, by the fact that they secured the border, less people put themselves in harm's way, less drugs got in this country. So President Trump saved thousands of lives, and under President Biden, record now Americans are dying from drugs, and a record number of migrants are dying crossing the border. There is no comparison.
One of the issues that really caught my eye, though, and you mentioned it a minute ago, it's not likely we'd deport 20 million people effectively in 12 months. But the fact remains, they're not all bad people. There might be some that were really pretty good and contributors to could be contributors to our society, not takers. Was there ever a plan in place, a sort of plan B and plan C, to take what you vetted were the good ones and maybe put them into a program where maybe 4 years of service with our military, the learning of our Constitution, the taking of the oath to protect and defend this nation, and 4 years of service kind of entitles you to you want a rapid jump start to becoming an American citizen? How about 4 years of service protecting this nation? What say you?
Well, under the Trump administration, and I believe this after I worked for 6 presidents, starting with Ronald Reagan, on this border issue. And I think we can all agree, at least the ones that believe in a secure border, is that you got to secure the border first before you talk about any sort of amnesty or expanded immigration. You got to stop the bleed, right? So we got to stop. Keep putting our fingers in the dam. We got to actually stop the leaks, and we don't need more buckets. We need to stop the leak. So let's secure the border first, and we can talk about what we do about those that no criminal history and not a threat to our national security. I can tell you this. Look, a lot of the people across the border, I can't blame anybody who wants to come to the greatest nation on earth. I can't blame them. I mean, we are the greatest nation on earth. They want to come here for a better life and a job and so forth. I get that. But you can't do that by claiming asylum at the border, knowing that asylum is about escaping fear and persecution from your home government because of your race, religion, or political affiliation. To make a fraudulent claim to asylum, that does a couple things. Number one, it's illegal, and number two, for those people in the world that really do need our protection, there are people in this world that really do need the United States to help them escape persecution. They're standing in the back row because all these other people commit asylum fraud. So let's secure the border first, and we can talk about this. But under the Trump administration, we did have a great immigration plan. It was going to be based on merit. It was because we need good people to come to this country, help us to continue to be the greatest nation on the face of the earth. And that sometimes, many times, takes talent from all over the world. But we also didn't forget about families. Families can still immigrate with their families and petition for their family members. That was all part of the Trump plan. It was a solid plan of immigration. But again, the Congress just ignored it. So I agree with you. There needs to be some sort of fix, but that fix can only occur after we secure the border. Secure the border first, stop the leaks. Then we can talk about what we're going to do with all the water.
Yeah, also joining us again is Tom Douglas. Tom, when you first got into the picture with Tom Homan because of your background in the health side of things as it pertains to the viruses and the contagions coming over the line with these illegal immigrants. You want to address that issue? How much of it is here in Pensacola, Florida? I know Tom Homan's somewhere in northbound in New York, and you're somewhere near Virginia. The fact of the matter is, down here in Pensacola, we've seen an increase in all sorts of crazy viruses. I'm not talking COVID, other things as well that have come to fruition that haven't been around in decades. And any comment on what the illegals are bringing in?
Yeah, I mean, back in 2021, 2022, even into 2023, we were vaccinating these migrants at the border for COVID and for flu. And really, we were just scratching the surface as to what we could do to protect public health. There's so much more that we should be doing. Now, fast forward about a year later, now we're seeing all of these eradicated diseases that you only see in like third world countries. So we're talking tuberculosis, measles, mumps. New York had the first case of polio in December of 2022 since 1979. And Stanford University said all of these diseases have come directly from the southern border. So a quick vaccination at the southern border while CBP is doing their apprehension is the most effective healthcare tool that we have available today. I mean, honestly, and for every dollar that is spent on a vaccination, we're saving public health a minimum of $11 in health-related expenditures. So it's the most quick and effective healthcare tool that we have, and we absolutely need to have that in place while our border is 100% open.
We're talking with Thomas Douglas, whose medical background is how the connection occurred between Thomas Douglas and Tom Homan, who are both I'm privileged to have with me today on Gene Valentino's GrassRoots TruthCast. One of the specific questions I had of you, Tom Homan, was always a concern of mine. I never understood, as I watched you on the national news, stand up to such abrasive ridicule and attack from them. I'm going to call it the fake news. But isn't it funny? Many of them in the fake news, the networks and the broadcast outlets, don't you get a sense the door is kind of swung back the other way?
Yeah, I think this crisis is historic. Look, I knew this administration moved to the left. I didn't think they'd lose their minds and fall off the table. But again, we went from the most secure border in my lifetime to historic illegal immigration. So it's starting to affect, look, every town, city, and state is now a border town, city, and state. Illegal aliens are being shipped and flown to all the major cities across the country. And not only that, the fentanyl, the drugs coming across the border, that's making it every town, city, and state of the nation. So now it's affecting them personally. It's affecting their hometowns. So look, the Governor Abbott and Governor DeSantis, when they were flying the migrants to different cities, to sanctuary cities and Democrat-led cities, that was a great move, because what they did, they put this story on the front page of the newspaper. Now you got Democrat governor speaking up. You got Democrat mayor speaking up. Now you feel the pain. You feel the pain Arizona's been feeling and Texas has been feeling. So yeah, illegal immigration, I said many times, illegal immigration is not a victimless crime. And when Time said, throughout my career, I can't tell you how many times I was tested for TB when I was a Border Patrol agent, a special agent, because we encountered those people on the border. Of course, then you got to get your scratch test and make sure you didn't get it. But I think the left's clearly understanding the national security issue, because how many people of terrorist watch lists have been arrested trying to sneak in this country. But more importantly than that, I think everybody's understanding we're at over 2 million known gotaways. 2 million people have crossed this border weren't arrested, weren't vetted. And how do we know 2 million? Because we're calling on video or drone traffic or sensor traffic. So there's images of them, but Border Patrol couldn't go arrest them because they're too overwhelmed with this huge humanitarian crisis. So we got over 2 million people. Now, Border Patrol's arrested 358 people off the terrorist watch list on the southwest border in 3 years. 358. You know how many Trump administration had in 4 years? 11. 11 in 4 years. They got 358. They had 18 last month. They had more in a month than we had in 4 years under Trump. So I think everybody now is beginning to say, look, this is the problem. This has gone too far. It's a national security crisis. It's a public safety crisis. It's a public health crisis. And let me just share this one story with you about what danger the disease comes across this border. When I was ICE director, we had a case of TB that we arrested, and we had of course, we had a cohort him, and we had a cohort in the entire facility. And we put him in the negative pressure room to deal with him. And it was a strain of TB that wasn't easily treatable, something we hadn't seen before. And we kept him in isolation for months, working with the CDC and Texas Department of Public Health, trying to come up with some sort of cocktail to treat this person. Now, let's think for a minute. What if he would have got into the local school system or got into one of our inner cities? I mean, this happens every day. Disease comes across that border every day. Diseases that we eradicated as a nation. So people better be really, paying attention. There's a reason why you see a record increase in mumps and measles and TB and again, I keep pushing this. I don't care what your opinion is on illegal migration, but when a crisis this big is caused, and they got over 8 million people have been released in this country, 2 million gotaways, we're hitting 10 million people. If you don't think a single one of them came from a country sponsoring terror, then you're an idiot. If you don't think some of these people are carrying disease, then you're not paying attention. This is the biggest issue facing this country. I've said it many times before. What's happening on the southern border is the biggest national security vulnerability I've seen in this country since 9/11.
I guess the former Trump administration acting director of U.S. Immigration and Customs and Enforcement should know. Tom Homan, I can't help but think there's a bigger, deeper picture here. We talk about fake news, it's become a cliche, and so has the term deep state. My concern, Tom, from your point of view, your focus has been the border, and I submit it's not just the southern border. I'm sure you are quite on top of the illegal entries coming in through Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, and even New York and elsewhere on our northern border. But more to my point, what the heck is going on with a deep state narrative? Your entire issue you've been dealing with and complaining about and lost control of when Donald Trump was unfortunately taken off his job. My point is, don't you see this as part of a deeper conspiracy? I call it a deep state activity, but it's not only the bad behavior from within our nation through bad actors in Congress and the administration and now the Justice Department. But don't you see something bigger that you can report to us now on what China, Russia, Venezuela, Argentina, name me 6 more. This has not just happened overnight.
No.
And now for the Biden administration to be ignoring it to the extent to which he is, tells me there's some sort of conspiracy, and we need laws in place to pull these bad actors off the job faster. Oh, we're going to get them out in the next election. Hell, we may not have a country in the next election. Isn't there a remedy you can propose under the Trump administration forthcoming that might allow us to get rid of this bad behavior faster, sooner, legally?
Well, look, I think what's happening with this administration, I think is treasonous. I think what they've done is when they cause this, and look, this isn't, people need to understand what's happening on the border. You're right, the northern border, do you know twice as many people on the terrorist watch list have been arrested on the northern border than the southern border? But no one talks about that. And I remember after 9/11, I think the GAO did a study saying it's 10 times more likely that your next terrorist will cross the northern border, not the southern border. 10 times more likely. So people arrested from a country-sponsored terrorist, far more likely on the northern border. And matter of fact, they've arrested almost twice as many on the northern border than the southern border. So I just want to bring that up real quick. And look, people ask me all the time, why would they open the border like they did? I mean, why would they? This isn't mismanagement. This isn't incompetence. This is by design. Joe Biden ran on open borders. Hey, I got to give him credit. He kept his promise. I've never seen a more open border in my lifetime. But here's the issue. Why would they do it? There's a couple reasons I think they'll do it. Number one, of course, they think these millions of people are going to be future Democratic voters, importing what they believe to be future Democratic voters. But it doesn't even have to get there, because what Biden also did when he signed over 93 executive orders abolishing everything we created under the Trump administration to give us the most secure border ever, he also overturned the Trump census rule, which means all these millions of people being released in sanctuary cities will be counted in the next census. And what's that going to do? That's going to result in more seats in the House for the Dems. They sold the safety and security of this nation out for future political power. And so again, they don't have to vote. They just got to be counted in the next census. And when they reproportionate the seats in the House, Democrats wins hands down. They control the House forever. This is what they're doing. But you're exactly right. This isn't just the inside the Beltway of DC. There are plans, worldwide. Look, China, over 30,000 males, military age males from China have entered this country illegally that we know of. Again, we know how many, 2 million were from China. China doesn't let people just walk out of the country, especially 30,000 military age males. They're into this. Venezuela, they're sending the worst. Crime rate in Venezuela has dropped significantly. Why do you think that is? Because they're sending all the bad guys here. They're emptying the prison. When Trump says that at the rallies, people attack him, it's not true. It is true. Look at the data. It is true. So you're right. There's a plan in place here. So I think to really destroy this country and reinvent what this country is, and it scares the hell out of me. I grew up in the greatest nation on earth. I grew up in America that I loved. And I tell people all the time, I still love this country, but this isn't America I grew up in. You look around, I don't recognize this America under this administration. That's why it's important. And you said it. If President Trump doesn't come back in November, I don't think we can fix this. It's already going to be a decade worth of work to fix the damage done. But if we don't get him back in November, if we don't win the election in November, and they get another 4 years, I don't think it can be fixed. So this is why, I always say this is the most important election ever. This one actually is. This is about the safety and security of this nation. And frankly, this is survival of this nation, if we even survive. So everything you said was right. It's not just a deep state in Washington, D.C. within the Beltway. There is a plan. And we got to stop the plan in their foot tracks. And what I think the Trump administration should do when they get back in power is hold people accountable. Make the Justice Department do what they're supposed to be doing, hold people accountable that intentionally tried to destroy this nation from the inside out.
Tom Homan, acting director, assistant director of Homeland Security under the Trump administration, introduced to me through Tom Douglas, who's also on screen with us. Tom's owner and CEO of Universal One. Thomas, a real quick plug for Universal One and what you're doing and how that segued into an introduction to Tom Homan.
Yeah, I mean, we're good at solving digital health challenges with transformative solutions. So we were, luckily able to make a difference at the southern border. If we can make a difference at all 2,000 miles of southern border, vaccinating and tracking migrants, we can do a lot more, to say the least.
Let me just jump on what Tom said. Here's the takeaway from this podcast, or this moment we have together. People are listening to podcasts. Call your senator, call your congressman. Demand that we secure the border. But look, if this administration can continue to release thousands a day into this country, then at least your representative, your congressman or your senator should demand. If we demand that Americans get vaccinated to enter this country, we demand if you come here legally on an immigrant visa or you actually immigrate lawfully, there's a series of vaccinations you're required to get before you step foot in this land, in this country. So bottom line is, if they're going to continue releasing millions of people in this country, at least, at a minimum, protect our public health here in the United States by making these people get the same vaccinations a legal immigrant would have to get when they enter this country. That's the least they can do. If they want to destroy the border, keep doing it. We got to keep fighting it. However, if they're going to continue to release them, doesn't it make sense to protect the safety and the health of the United States citizens of this country and the children in our school systems. Over 400,000 children have crossed this border illegally under this administration, most of them with no vaccinations. And they're in our public school system with our children. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. This should be a nonpartisan argument and a nonpartisan agreement that the safety and the public health of this country should be priority number one. So at least give these people the required vaccination before we release them into the society, especially before we release them in our public school system. For God's sake, that's just common sense. So for people watching this show, listening to this show, demand some action from your representative. Remember, they're accountable to you, not the other way around. They work for you. Demand that they protect public health and at least do this. As Tom says, it's a penny on a dollar to vaccinate people from some of these terrible diseases, then deal with them after they're sick and after they make people in this country sick. Then we got to deal with all the aftermath and expense of all of that. Do the right thing. Call your congressman, call your senator, and demand that they protect the public safety in this country.
Yeah, and my congressman here in the Panhandle of Florida is Congressman Matt Gaetz, who just 2 days ago sent a letter to Jim Jordan, House Judiciary, and he reports that former head of James O'Keefe of O'Keefe Media Group sent his whistleblower and gave information to President Trump between his trials, showing that Gina Haspel, current CIA director, and former CIA director Mike Pompeo may have been withholding information from Donald Trump, not only during his term of office, but that the CIA director may have in fact been complicit in the surveillance under FISA rules, extended FISA rules, that snooped into the lifestyle of Donald Trump personally, and that his former CIA director, Mike Pompeo, now Secretary of State, was in fact the person who recommended Gina Haspel to President Trump for an appointment position. Do you have any insight on that, Tom Homan?
No, I don't. I know these people you're talking about, but I really have no insight on that. I'm a border guy, and that's what I pretty much stick to. And in my opinion, as I said earlier, I think the border issue is the biggest national security vulnerability in this country today because it involves Russia, it involves China. We got people crossing the border from 181 different countries. Many countries sponsor terror. This is my biggest concern right now.
So if I said to you, hey, we're say again?
Something's coming. I'm telling you, something is coming. There's no way with 2 million unknown gotaways, and we've already arrested 181 different countries. Many of these countries sponsor terror. If you don't think a single one of that 2 million didn't come here to do something terrible in this country, then you're just ignoring the chances of fake. I think something's coming. Every expert, even the director of the FBI, who I have zero respect in, even he said during the last couple of testimonies, they're seeing more red flags right now about the security of this nation and the threats against this nation they've ever seen. So something's coming. God help us.
Tom Homan, how does the nation protect itself? I remember going back to Khrushchev and the Kennedy conversations, chuckling comments by Khrushchev saying something to the effect, don't worry, we're going to eat you guys from within. Might this be that scenario?
I think this country's imploding from within. I actually do. I think they're being destroyed from the inside. And that's why, again, we need a strong president that's going to hold China accountable for creating the precursors of the fentanyl is killing. Look, China with the precursors of fentanyl and the criminal cartels in Mexico who push that poison across the border, they've killed more Americans than every terrorist organization in the world combined. So, we need a strong president who's going to, these criminal cartels in Mexico is pushing fentanyl, they're terrorist organizations. He will designate a terrorist organization and he will wipe them off the face of the earth, just like he did the caliphate. And look, and we need a strong president, hold China accountable, hold Russia accountable, and hold people in this past administration who sold this country out for future political power. We need a strong president. Our hope, you say, what can we do? How can we how can Americans surpass this? How can we survive? How can we win this? There's one way to get President Trump back in the White House in November. We need to get him back. He's a strong president. He doesn't take garbage from anybody. And I've been in the Oval Office many times where he called leaders of other countries and demanded action, and he got it. He didn't ask, he demanded it. We need a president, a strong president with a backbone who this world will fear, because when President Trump was the president, we had the most lethal military in the world. And we need that same guy back. We need that attitude back. This country needs to be respected and feared like it was before.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback on what you just said. There's a principle referred to as principles before personalities. I at this point, I don't care if you like Donald Trump or not. Put him back in, not because you like him, but because you believe he can get something done. You know, Tom, I used to be a county commissioner for 2 terms here in the Panhandle, and when I went for reelection, I'd say, "Hey, listen, I hope you appreciate I got some things done for you, but even if you're mad at me about this or this, would you please vote for me anyway? I got stuff done for you, and I'd be glad to do it again for you." Principles before personalities, I think, is the biggest lesson for the voter to think about before they go into the booth. 2 minutes remaining. I'll go back to you, Tom Douglas. A minute or two of a closing comments or thoughts, and who you represent and where people can go to get more on you. And then we're going to go back to Acting Director of ICE, Tom Homan, for a final comment. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, thanks. You can find me on LinkedIn, Tom J. Douglas at LinkedIn. And to dovetail off what Director Homan said, we're really seeing a preview now for how these migrants crossing over. It's not just the biggest public health crisis since COVID. It's now a breach of national security, because we're seeing tuberculosis cases up 16% year over year, and we're seeing the bombardment on our public health system. Just look what's happened along the border. Yuma Regional Medical Center, they have provided over $26 million in uncompensated migrant care, and it's put the hospital at the brink of collapse. And this is not just a one-off deal. Look at Denver Health System. They have treated over 8,000 migrants in a year. It's led to over 20,000 medical cases. And at the end of the day, they had a net loss of $35 million in 2022. So it has almost put them on the brink of loss as well. So we do not want this to expand. The quickest and most effective healthcare tool that we have, like Director Homan said, is a quick shot in the arm. It's a quick vaccination at the southern border at the time of apprehension. We've done it before with just COVID and flu. We can do it again for all 9 childhood required vaccinations. I have 2 little kids, a 10 and a 12-year-old in the public school system. I have to show proof of vaccination. Otherwise, they're not allowed in the public school system with my tax dollars. So why should these migrants be held to a different standard? It doesn't make sense. We can all make a difference. Let's do more together.
That's Tom Douglas. Tom Douglas with Universal.one. Check out his website and continue the conversation with Tom Douglas at Universal.one. And now over to Director Homan, Tom Homan, under the Trump administration, Acting Director. Thomas Homan, a few final words.
Well, first of all, what Tom just said is important. And look, trauma centers and hospitals across the country are losing millions of dollars taking care of illegal aliens that aren't supposed to be here. But how are they going to make that money up? It's common sense, folks. They're going to make money up by increasing health care for us. Those of us that pay insurance, those of us that have insurance, the cost is going to skyrocket for us. These hospitals are going to make it up. They're going to make it up by charging people who can pay a higher rate to pay for the losses. Common sense. Second, I'll say this. We're at a crisis in this country I've never seen in my lifetime. We better pay attention. We better get to the voting booth in November and vote for a strong president. I happen to think it's President Trump. But, and for those people say, well, I just don't like President Trump. He does mean tweets. Look, President Trump has, he's had his issues. Not everything he says and does, I support 100%. But, I'm going to take the mean tweets to protect the national security of this country. And if someone's looking for someone to be perfect, you're looking for the perfect man to be president, then you better wait for the second coming of Jesus, because I'm 2 years old. I never met a perfect man in my life, including me. So look, you got a choice to make. We got a country to save, and there's one guy willing to do it. This guy can walk away tomorrow and be the billionaire he is and not take the hate and the pressure and the lawsuits and the criminal cases. He didn't need any of this. He's doing it for the right reasons. He's the only one doing it for the right reasons. He's the only second president in history of this country who left office poorer than when he went in. The man is doing it for the right reasons. The man has proven what he can do for this country. The record speaks for itself. I'm a Trump guy, not ashamed of it. Trump comes back, I come back. I think Trump needs to be back in the White House to not only deal with this border issue and our public health issue, to deal with the national security issue that's putting this country at great risk. So, God bless the folks. Please pay attention and please be active. Everybody should be getting to the voting booths in November. Everybody.
Folks, did you hear that? You got to be active. We're a nation based on the grassroots of the neighborhoods and the villages. It's where I got the name for my podcast, GrassRoots TruthCast. It's that we, the people, have the most important say for guys like Tom Homan here and Tom Douglas to step up and serve this nation. And Tom Homan, I couldn't agree more with you. I think that he has to get back in to save this nation. I fear that we're a benevolent nation. We've always been for centuries. And I don't mind continuing to be benevolent with other nations of the world. But damn it, let's get our border fixed first and get it fixed properly and qualify who a true American is. I submit, gentlemen, that we may need some constitutional amendments to fast track a response by government to fix its own bad behavior and not just wait till the next election. Some of this stuff should have been remedied sooner, not later. And that's a discussion for a different day, I guess. Tom Douglas from Universal.1. Please, folks, check him out. And our featured guest this week is Acting Director Thomas Homan from the Trump administration under ICE. And we are honored to have found him at a rest stop on his way northbound to northern New York to be. Where are you going, Tom?
I'm going to Albany. We're giving a New York State GOP symposium today, and I'll be speaking tonight at dinner.
Well, it's time for us to let you go. I thank my two gentlemen for being with us today, and I thank you for joining us today on another special report episode of Gene Valentino's GrassRoots TruthCast. See you soon.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.